What I was doing before was giving you like a document that had everything on it, and then in addition to that was the Google Classroom. And I feel like maybe that was a little bit confusing. So I went ahead, and if you go to the classwork section of our classroom here, I decided that it might be easier if I just go ahead and make topics by the week. So I'm eliminating that extra page, and I'm just going to put everything for this week here with it, starting with an instruction page. So that's going to be kind of like a here's what you need to do this week kind of thing. And then all of the elements that you need to complete those are right there in that same little, I don't know, is it a folder, module? In Blackboard in my dual class, we call them modules, but I don't think they're called that in Google Class. Anyway, it's all right here, living under this, and then next week I'll make week 6 and so on and so forth, so that everything is right there. That way all the due dates are automatically there and have to remember to go and put them in separately. So that's the new plan. If you want me to go back the other way, then let me know. But I think that this, maybe all the teachers do it like this, and it just didn't occur to me. I'm running late on that. I don't know. I'm trying my best, but this might be easier for us. So it looks like a lot, but most of them are just like reminders of formatives and things for seniors and stuff. So let's go through the instructions here. And this is kind of like, I put a little notebook there because it'll be kind of like, you know, your go-to for week 5. Probably you saw my post yesterday that says that the district had a meeting, the school board had a meeting on Thursday last week, and they made a decision to postpone hybrid until October 26th for students. We have to go back on the 21st, the teachers, but they're just worried about, you know, the saturation of the virus in our particular area. There are a lot of places that are way better, and so they can start their hybrid or they're back to school already or whatever, but there's a pretty high percentage of hospital beds that are taken up with COVID, and so they're trying to make sure that everybody's safe. So if you had signed up to do hybrid, you will not be starting that until the 26th of October, with exception. There's one exception, and that is that students who don't have internet connectivity, don't have devices to do virtual learning, those students can start going to campus on Wednesday. Obviously, that's not anybody here, because if you're here in this meeting, then you've got both of those things. But if you know somebody, if you have a neighbor, if there's somebody in your family and they're struggling with getting internet, it's not working out, whatever, have them contact the school, because all the schools in WISD are supposed to open up next Wednesday. And what they're going to do, well, at East, what they're going to do is they're going to like designate the computer labs socially distanced, and the computer labs are there so that students can get on the computers and start working, because maybe they haven't even started the school year. In the last 4 weeks, they haven't been able to participate. So they're opening up the school just for those kids. Last count at our school, I think that was 75 students. So those are the only people who are going next week. Everybody else will be going on the 26th. And if you're staying on virtual, then I know a lot of people who just decided that the whole first semester they were going to stay on virtual, and if they would see how it goes in the spring. But anyway, so any questions about that? That's why I'm still here in my dining room instead of at school. Mr. almost decided to go to school, so I don't know why. I don't know. He likes wearing masks, I guess. I don't know. All right, a few other things. There's a college fair this week, so I posted that last week. But for everybody in this class, whether you're a junior or a senior, you can attend the college fair. There's over 300 colleges that are going to be represented there. And if you scroll down here in week 5, you'll see that it says college fair for this week. You do have to register. So here's the registration link. And then here on this PDF are the instructions on how to register for that. So you might want to do that. Somebody was in one of my earlier classes was telling me it's today. So I don't know. But I did post that last week. But just a reminder, especially for those of you who maybe don't have in mind what schools you might like to attend for college, you could be starting that process of, you know, thinking it through a little bit. Also, seniors, a reminder that FAFSA opens this Thursday on October 1st. FAFSA is financial aid. So just keep in mind that financial aid is not unlimited. It's like a bank account, and when they run out of it, people don't get it anymore. So you have to apply every year. And this year the application opens October 1st. So who do you think is going to get more money? The people that wait until April? Nah. The people who get on it and start looking, filling out their paperwork here in October. So the counselors would like for all the seniors to have their Apply Texas and their FAFSA done by the end of October. That gives you the best chance at many options. Most people choose their colleges at least partially based on financials. So, like, what can you afford? So what the federal government's going to give you will give you a good viewpoint into that. And then whatever the school might offer you, but that's above and beyond. Also, seniors, I put down here, I gave you a little cap down here so you could see, I put some links here. This is the counseling link that the counselors went over with you the other day about testing and Apply Texas and FAFSA and all that stuff. Here's the link to Apply Texas, and here's the link to FAFSA. If you don't have a social security number, there's a different financial aid form for you to do called TASFA. So if you're in that situation, you can let me know and I'll get you the link to that. Also, I put on here about the college admissions essay. I did make a seminar for those of you who have to do an essay for your application. And it's a walkthrough with videos of, my best tips for those essays. And I've already started editing them. People who want to turn them into me, I will give you feedback. Usually takes me about a day to return it to you, depending on how many I have, but I already have 4 lined up that I have to look at tonight. So whenever I get them, I usually return them in about 24 hours. So it's not a requirement. I'm not making an assignment because we have a lot of juniors in class. But if you do want some feedback on that essay, it's super important because of the scholarships and other things that come from it. But I did put those links down there for you seniors. You can always tell it's the seniors one because I'll put your little graduation cap on there. Yay for emojis. How much longer before we just write in emojis and we don't put words anymore? I don't know, like your grandkids probably. Okay, I think that's it for updates. I noticed when I went yesterday in the morning, or was it Saturday night, I went and checked to see how people were doing on the AP Classroom assignments. There was a test that you needed to do on there, and there were a lot of people who hadn't done it. And I thought, oh, they're probably just waiting until Sunday. But then Sunday started going through, and I'm like, oh, there's only like 3 people that have submitted. And then I thought, well, maybe it's because I didn't put that as a reminder on Google Classroom, which is one of the reasons why I changed the format. But I'm leaving that open. I know that there are a few people who didn't get to that, maybe because of my fault of not reminding you. I mean, it was on that other sheet, but now that we're a little more organized, I'm leaving it open until tomorrow evening. That is a test. It's going to count as a test, as a major grade this 6 weeks. So if you don't take care of that, it's going to turn into a 0 after tomorrow night. So if you already did it, that's okay. You're finished. It's a time test. It's AP, structure. So it's also my first chance to see your writing on a time situation with the AP style question. Actually, there's 2 questions. So it's important that you do your best so that I can start planning out how we can get where we need to be for college credit in May. So, do your best. It does count for a test grade. So I don't know if you would even pass the 6 weeks. It's probably the only, that and the summer assignment are the only major grades for the 6 weeks. So do make sure that you get to that. I did extend it just because maybe it slipped people's mind or whatever. But the link's here again. I put it back on this week so that you could access it. So if you didn't do that, please, that's like your priority this week. Get your formative done today, and then today or tomorrow, work on that progress check. Let's see what else. All right, so we're starting a new unit. We're wrapping up. The reason we're taking that test is because it wraps up short fiction, and we're going to be moving into poetry this week. Poetry, are you clapping sarcastically or are you clapping because you like poetry? Oh, okay. All right, poetry is super important in AP Lit. It's a third of the test. A third of the AP exam is poetry, assuming that they do a regular test this year. That means that you'll be writing an essay on the exam about poetry, and about a third of the multiple choice questions are on poems. Usually one passage will be from an older poem, like from the 17th or 18th century, and then 2 other passages will be from a more modern poem each. And then it's kind of a toss-up on the free response whether the poem will be modern or older, but the last 4 or 5 years, it's been a modern poem. I grade the AP exams for the College Board. So I travel to Salt Lake City every summer. Well, not this past summer, we did it online. But I travel to Salt Lake City and read for the exam and score the essays. So I've been on poetry the last 2 years. I've been grading the poetry exams, and they're both modern poems. So I don't know, maybe it'll be modern. Sometimes they like to switch it up. In any case, our introduction to poetry this week is going to be in the form of a seminar that I've created for you. I think that poetry is tough for some people. I think that if you were in AP English 3, you probably did not do a lot of poetry because that is a rhetoric-based course and you're reading a lot of nonfiction and speeches and things like that. Maybe you did a couple novels or a play, but not a lot of poetry. So we spend a lot of time this year working on poetry to get everybody up to speed for it, because it's a key component of the English 4 AP class. So instead of just saying, oh, you know what, I just want you to read these chapters and read these poems and let's start poetry that way, I decided to come up with a seminar that was a little more dynamic. So as our introduction to poetry, I wanted to have you experience the emotion and powerful expression of poetry. Poetry is one of the more emotional types of writing. I mean, all writing can be emotional, but we especially see that in poetry because it's condensed. We can take an idea that it takes Shakespeare a whole 5-act play to get around to, and in a poem it can be compressed down into an idea that has to be opened up and expanded in order to understand it. And it's much more figurative, right? We use a lot more metaphors and symbolism and things like that in poetry. So you have to unpack it with a lot more care than, say, a novel. And so it's important to first address the emotion and expression of poetry. So what I decided to do was start with spoken word poetry. Do y'all know what spoken word poetry is? Have you ever studied that before? No?
No.
No? It's a new topic? All right, well, maybe I'll delve into the seminar a little bit and show you some examples. So let's go to, well, you can just watch on the screen here. I'm going to go to the assignment, but the first thing to do on the assignment is the seminar, right? So you can do this on your own, but I want to take you to a certain page of that, and then I'll walk you through the assignment that goes with it. But the seminar, I set it up on a slideshow, so if you go through it slide by slide, then you'll end up getting the whole lesson. But let me take you to one of the slides so that I can show you an example of, okay, so each slide is a different little exploration, but I want to play you one of my favorite examples of spoken word poetry. And I think I can play an audio even if I have my thing in, can I? I think I can. I think it will play, like a YouTube will play, won't it, for you guys? So spoken word poem is a poem, and the seminar will direct you to make some notes and stuff, but it's a poem that's written to be performed. Not all poetry is written to be performed. Some poetry is written to be read, you know, in private or in moments of contemplation, love poetry, etc. But spoken word poetry is meant to be performed, and so it's got a certain edge to it. It's got a certain power to it because whoever is performing the poem usually is the person who wrote it, and usually they've got something that they're trying to get across to the audience clearly in that moment. So there's a really interesting synergy between the poet and the audience because they're right there in each other's space, because they're delivering it and presenting it. It's not the same thing as reading a poem. So I could open any poetry book and read a poem out loud to you. That's a recitation. I'm reciting something that, you know, Longfellow wrote or some other poet. But a spoken word poem is meant to be performed and make an impact on the audience. So I'm going to play one for you. And this is one of my favorite ones, probably. And you'll see what I mean. The goal is through this entire lesson to look at these examples and try to pinpoint the power of expression and the fact that spoken word poetry is so vital and vibrant in that moment. So I'm going to play this one. I hope it works. I haven't played a video in a Zoom call yet. Let's see how it goes.
We can't hear it.
Miss, we can hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
All right. No, it's not going to work either. I didn't think about how that would work. I just assumed that it would. Hold on. No. 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 All right, let me start again. Nobody could hear it? No. All right. Maybe I need to change my, hold on.
This way. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear this.
The first time I saw her, everything in my head went quiet. All the tics, all the constantly refreshing images just disappeared. When you have obsessive compulsive disorder, you don't really get quiet moments. Even in bed, I'm thinking, there's locked door yet, watch my jet, locked door yet, watch my jet. When I saw her, the only thing I could think about was the hairpin curve of her lips, or the eyelash on her cheek, the eyelash on her cheek, the eyelash on her cheek. I knew I had to talk to her. I asked her out 6 times in 30 seconds. She said yes after the third one, but none of them felt right, so I had to keep going. On our first date, I spent more time organizing my meal by color than I did eating, fucking talking to her. But she loved it. She loved that I had to kiss her goodbye 16 times or 24 times if it was Wednesday. She loved it took me forever to walk home because there are lots of cracks on our sidewalk. When we moved in together, she said she felt safe, like no one would ever rob us because I definitely locked the door 18 times. I always let her out when she talked, when she talked, when she talked, when she talked, when she talked. When she said she loved me, her mouth would curl up at me. At night, she'd lay in bed and watch me turn all the lights off. No. She'd close her eyes and imagine the days and nights were just passing in front of me. Some mornings, I start kissing her goodbye, but she'd just leave because I was making her late for work. When I stopped at a crack in the sidewalk, she just kept walking. When she said she loved me, her mouth was a straight line. She told me I was taking up too much of her time. Last week, she started sleeping at her mother's place. She told me that she shouldn't have let me get so attached to her. This whole thing was a mistake. But how can it be a mistake when I don't have to wash my hands after I touch her? Oh, not a mistake. She was wonderful. Away from it, and I just can't. I can't go out and find someone new because I always think of her. Usually, when I obsess over things, I see germs sneaking into my skin. I see myself crushed by an endless procession of cards, and she was the first beautiful thing I ever got stuck on. I want to wake up every morning thinking about the way she holds her steering wheel, how she turns shower knobs when she's opening a safe, how she blows out candles, 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 blows out. Now, I just think about who else is kissing her. I can't breathe because he only kisses her once. He doesn't care if it's perfect. I want him back So bad. I leave the door unlocked. I leave the lights on.
Okay, let's start this.
Okay, so hopefully you can see through that one example that spoken word poetry has the quality of an immediate audience interaction, right? The idea, you can even hear the audience reacting in that poem. And it's also, in that way, sometimes even more powerful and expressive than other poetry. What did you think of it?
Amazing.
Yeah, did you like it? Anybody else?
It was kind of hard for me to understand what he was saying. Like, I couldn't really hear it well.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of on purpose in a way. It is linked here, and it's one of the things that you can choose to look at again. But you know, he's writing from the perspective and performing from the perspective of somebody with OCD. So he's got this repetitive element, right, that he's trying to demonstrate through the way that he's speaking, and so it kind of rolls onto itself sometimes. Yeah, and so we have to think, okay, well, that could either be the quality of the video, or it could be that he's trying to really, really speak the way somebody would speak and think if they had that disorder, right? And he's incorporating that into his speech. Do you want to see another one? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so let me play this other one for you. I like this one a lot. They usually have serious topics because usually people are, you know, with a live audience, they're using the opportunity to make sure that they are connecting and, you know, like their point is getting across, like it's super vital for them to do it. I'm gonna play this third one here. Anne Frank offers Justin Bieber a lesson in humility. I think the key is to take off my AirPods.
To play the video. Wait, that's the wrong link. Hold on. Oh no, I linked to the wrong thing on that one. Maybe I can find it here real quick. I'll fix that link in your tutorial later.
In April 2013, pop singer Justin Bieber visited the home of Anne Frank. In the guest book he wrote, "She was a really great girl. I hope she would have been a believer." Anne Frank offers Justin Bieber a lesson in humility. If there is a God worth praying to that lives in someone's skin, I have already found her inside of me. Don't need your wind-up toy to pray to. I am the girl inside the music box. The only ballerina who pulled a dance from her own captivity and painted the walls with it. Justin, don't enter my home and demand it care about your music. I've already plucked a tune from the gaping wounds in each crack in the paint here, sang a lullaby to the sound of the boots pacing outside. One night before bed, I gathered all the air inside my lungs. When I woke up still breathing, I named this moment my symphony. So great girl might be legacy enough for me. Nobody wanted this girl sitting next to them in school. Nobody wanted to write about what it's like to become a girl. Nobody wanted to keep me quiet in their cupboards. Nobody wanted my hands to hold their children's hands. But now everybody wants a piece of my bones.
That one's like a totally different topic. obviously, but you can really see that the perspective there is that she's taking on the persona of Anne Frank, right? And from what I understand, that's true, that Justin Bieber did go to the house of Anne Frank, or the house where she was hiding during World War II, and actually wrote that in the guest book. And so this poet is imagining how Anne Frank would respond to that, and taking that perspective, that point of view, as she's kind of upset and chastising that action. So when we talk about spoken word poetry, we're talking about that kind of expression. And you can always hear the audience. Maybe you've heard of slam poetry. Have you ever heard of slam poetry? Slam poetry is spoken word poetry for a contest. So they have contests of this stuff. If it's spoken word, it just means that they're just presenting their poem and performing it for an audience. But slam poetry is a competition. So somebody will have the best poem and somebody will win. So there's a slight difference between them, but they are performing spoken word poetry in a slam competition. So I just wanted to give you a little taste of what spoken word poetry is. But this tutorial will take you through a number of different activities. I want you to go through it in order because I set it up to go in order. I know I just skipped ahead to show you some examples, but I couldn't help myself. And so the step one here is to go through an Edpuzzle video lesson where another poet did a TED Talk on spoken word poetry, and she performs a couple of her poems. So there's this Edpuzzle assignment, and then you can watch some of the favorites that I just had and maybe look for some more of your own. And then the assignment this week is going to, this looks long, but what I want you to do is I want you to find a spoken word poem that you think is a good example of the genre of spoken word poetry. And if it's a little confusing to you right now what that genre is, then the tutorial will help you through that. So you'll see a lot more examples and you'll hear people talk about what spoken word poetry is and isn't. So I want you to find a spoken word poem that you think is a good example and does a good job of capturing that powerful emotion and expression of ideas that we saw in those two poems just now. If you want to, you can perform your own if you would like. Not everybody's a poet, not everybody's a performer, but I do want to give you that option. So I set up a Padlet, and on that Padlet, I want for you to post a poem, like the link of it on there. I'll show you what it looks like in a second. And then comment on your, like, how that poem is a good example of spoken word poetry because of the emotion, the expression. So here's what that looks like. I put an example on there already for you. Hopefully I have the right link this time. So I reproduced the directions right here, and then I put in that one from OCD that we just watched because it's one of my favorites. And so you can see I linked the video here. And then I wrote a paragraph here about why that poem is so emotionally charged and expressive. So I wrote, OCD is as much a look into love as it is a look into obsessive compulsive disorder. The poet uses the extreme nature of OCD to express his unique love and explain how love can transcend our difficulties. This poem shows us that love is so potent that it can help us surpass our expectations of ourselves and can also leave us with previously unexperienced despair. So the whole thing is to explain why this poem shows this extreme emotion that we get in spoken word poetry. Because I really think that as much as we might read a poem from the 17th century, it's the passion, it's the emotion that comes across the most in poetry. And so that seems to me like the logical place to start. So you're just gonna go ahead, if you've never done Padlet before, I'll give you a little tutorial. You just click down here in the plus in the bottom right corner, and it will give you a blank square. You're gonna have to type in your name here because I don't think that it's gonna sync up with Google. The school district doesn't have unlimited Padlet, but the college does, and I work for STC also, so I'm using their account. So I don't think it's gonna hook into Google, but you can just put your name here in the title. And then here's where you can add to the post. So right here's where you can put the link of the video, and then you can type where it says write something. That's how I did mine here. There's also other elements. You can change the color of it, of the thing. If you have a video that you want to upload, then you can just use that. And I think you know what all these things symbolize, right? If you want to scrap it and start over, you should be able to do that. Also, you should be able to go and like the ones that your classmates have done, right? And sort of rack up, we'll see who gets the most likes on their posts. So that's a quick run through, but really this whole slideshow will walk you through the whole procedure. Also, there's some tips on if you want to perform a poem, but you don't want to write one, there's some sources here. If you want to write your own, then there are some other tips here. That's an option. You don't have to write a poem. How to perform it and that sort of thing. So there's some little tips here in case you decide to go that route, but you don't have to. You have the option of posting somebody else's spoken word poem, just like the example that I gave you, and commenting on it. Or, you know, maybe there's some people who want to dabble in spoken word and want to give it a shot. Or maybe we have some veteran spoken word poets that want to have their moment. So that's our focus for this week. Questions about the seminar? You can unmute or post in the chat if you have a question. I'm excited about it. Probably you guys will find some spoken word poems that I've never seen, and so it'll be exciting for me to check them out too. But everything that you need should be right here on this assignment. All right, we're almost done. Let's see. If we go back up to the instructions, there are some notes that I want you to do in chapter 4 of your book. So before next class period, that spoken word thing is due Sunday. And then before next class period, make sure that you've taken notes on this basic stuff in poetry. And I'll take some time next class period to go over some of those notes with you. But do read the examples that they have in there. For example, here's the reading assignment. I put a link to it right here. Is there anybody who's having trouble accessing the book? Can a couple people click on that link, because Mr. Ramos said that students were having trouble getting into his book, and it's the same company. So can a couple of you click on that link while I go over this and let me know if you have trouble accessing it. So what you might notice in the text is that, oh, I have to make this smaller. On the next page, hello. I wanted to point out that, maybe if I do it this way, chapter 4. I wanted to point out that when you run into a section in your textbook where there's a passage, that's not something that should be skipped. What they're trying to do is they're trying to demonstrate what they're talking about in that section of the textbook. So they'll talk about a concept, they'll give you some terms, and then they'll give you an example, either in short fiction, which we just finished up, or here in poetry, and then they will discuss how that is working in that poem. And if you've been paying attention, you know that the formative questions that you have for attendance have been coming a lot from those passages. So don't skip them. They're part of the assignment, but you can see that they're kind of walking you through what they're trying to explain, in this case about literal language. So don't skip those passages that are there. Do you have to stop and spend an hour on the poem? No, you don't need to do that, but you do need to follow so that you'll understand what they're talking about as they discuss the poem that's being used as an example. And then probably Mrs. Ramos is going to throw in a formative question that deals with that poem. So I figure you've already read it, so it's easy for you to do the formative since it was part of the assignment. So there are some pages to do for that for next week. And then we'll talk a little bit about those pages next Monday. All right. Questions? Is there anything in the chat that you wanted me to talk about? No? Or you can unmute and ask me. It can be related to our material, our assignments. It could be about, you know, the delay of starting hybrid. It can be about anything that's going on at school. If I don't know, then I can find out for you. Seniors, it could be about your Apply Texas. essays on applied Texas? No? Okay, well, just remember that everybody's working hard to support you and make sure that you have what you need, but you have to communicate, right? So I had a student that reached out to me and I had emailed her 4 times. She's not in this class. And I'd emailed her 4 times since we started school, just trying to find out what was going on because she wasn't coming to the live sessions or doing assignments. And finally, she emailed me back and I was concerned because I wanted to make sure that she had everything that she needed. And she was kind of like, I don't know why you sent me so many emails. I'm like, well, because I'm trying to make sure that you're on board, that you have what you need. So she didn't, and so we got her what she needed. But I think that, you know, if you're overwhelmed, if you need an extension on an assignment, if things don't make sense to you, don't wait to reach out to your teachers, because we're here to help you. And we have afternoon time where we can meet with you or respond to emails and give you feedback and help you through the process, because we know that it's tough. So take advantage of that, okay? Yes. All right, any final questions or anything about this week? Priority 1, do your formative for today. Priority 2, get that progress check on AP Classroom done if you haven't already. And then start working on the slam poetry stuff. I mean, the spoken word. Mrs. Sid was visiting during class. All right, I guess that's it for today then. I hope you all have a great week. And if something comes up, make sure that you let me know, all right? All right, have a good day.
All right, bye, Miss. Have a good day.
Bye, Miss.
Bye.
Bye, Miss.
Oh, all those bye misses just do my heart.